phrases.
I hate you.
I hate you, okay, that's probably kid code, but hate is an emotionally charged word. But it would be a charged word when you're using it in the other direction. When you show your hatred for me, that's charge. You see, I don't even believe that that's what you were doing, but I say it that way in order to give my words more weight. So I'm accusing you of something. No, that's not what I would call an emotionally charged word or phrase. It is defensive, and it may not be true. But what I'm talking about is a word that when you use it, gets a reaction.
It's just like your mother.
Okay? Comparisons with other people, that's also on the list here. Okay? Name calling. Name calling is on here somewhere, I think. Okay? Insult. But I'm actually looking for words that in themselves are charged words and charged phrases. Okay? Okay? Maybe the word wrong, I wouldn't say is an emotionally charged word, but when you say, when you wrongfully accuse me, then you're couching it in words that are meant to get a reaction. So somebody else said, yeah, when you judge me, okay, there's an emotionally charged word. You're accusing them. You're accusing them of being judging. People don't want to hear that. When you hurt me, that's emotionally charged. You embarrass me? That's ridiculous. That's really emotionally charged word. That's ridiculous. You don't love me? Well, that's certainly a charged phrase. It's an accusation, and it's only meant for a response. I mean, you never really mean it when you say that. Okay, I just don't get it. I don't know why you talk to me that way. That talk to me that way is emotionally charged phrase.
What about the ever popular, you make me feel anything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's externalization of responsibility. You make me feel, which is impossible. I feel what I want to feel. So that's putting responsibility on the other person. Right? You shouldn't feel this way. Stupid is an emotionally charged word. That's also name calling. Irrational. Okay. Useless. I wish you'd grow up. That is a very emotionally charged phrase, sentence. So, charged words, charged phrases, sarcasm, insults, references to the past, comparison with others, ultimatum. Avoid those if you can get those out of your vocabulary entirely. What that means is this. For as long as you are willing to cause hurt or pain to another human being under any circumstances, you and you alone are responsible for the fact that hurt and pain exist on this planet. Would you like me to repeat that? I think you need to put it on a bumper sticker. For as long as you are willing to cause hurt or pain to any other human being under any circumstances, you and you alone are responsible for the fact that hurt and pain exist on this planet. And for you to ask God to take away the hurt and pain and the war and the crime on this planet is hypocritical. Yes, hypocritical is a charged word, absolutely. It is a charged word. Very charged. It's also true. What can I do?
As an example, if I realize there's a part of me that's very protective, and if I have felt that there was somebody who was liable to be hurting a child or someone that I love, and I'm willing to murder that person to protect the child that I love, then that is what you're talking about.
Well, maybe, not really. That's
Another person.
yes, it is. It is, especially if there is another way to prevent the abuse. And there probably is. I don't, well, you know, there may be instantaneous situations where you have to put yourself in a situation that would cause death. But to intentionally murder someone because you're outraged that they hurt a child,
Really different. No, I'm talking about a protective kind of situation where it's either I kill them or they hurt my child or loved one.
Yeah.
I know there's a very ferocious side of me that would do that.
yeah,
And I'm just wondering about that, because that is causing hurt and pain to another person, obviously.
that's right. It's unlikely that that's ever actually necessary. It is a justification. It is an acceptable justification in our society. I don't think I can accept that justification. I don't believe it's necessary to kill somebody to prevent them hurting yourself, your child, your wife, or whatever. There might be a situation in which that's not true. Maybe you do have to. But that's hypothetical. What I'm really talking about is hurting feelings, hurting your wife, hurting your children, hurting your lover, which we do deliberately, which, you know, to go right back to the situation at hand, Richard and Susan were deliberately hurting one another in that communication. It was very deliberate. And for as long as they're willing to do that, each of them, individually, personally, not both of them, each of them, is responsible for the fact that hurt and pain exist on this planet. For as long as we're willing to deliberately cause it, we must take all, not part, not my part. I can't self-righteously say, I'll take my part of the responsibility. I take all of the responsibility. When I drop it and I'm not doing it anymore, then I can say I'm not responsible. Until then, I am responsible.
I think it's very important that you said I think it's very important the way you phrased it. See, my person there wrote it down, that as long as you're willing to cause pain, that's a little different than some kind of a situation
Where you have to.
There's something
Yeah.
really very different about that willingness to do it.
Yes. As long as you maintain your right to cause pain or hurt under any circumstances, you and you alone are responsible for the fact that hurt and pain exist on this planet. You have to take total responsibility. It's the only kind of responsibility there is. Just as love is always unconditional, if it's not unconditional, it isn't love.
Share something to what this gentleman said just now about protecting a loved one. I was amazed as my teenagers grew up because they knew Dad would always protect them because I put that message out. They set up many situations where I needed to, and I was amazed. It took me a long time to realize what was going on. It's quite incredible.
Yeah,
So if you put that message out, you'll be amazed. They want to see if you really will protect them.
Mm-hmm. So that was kid code. They wanted to know if you loved them.
Yeah.
This is something else I'd like to tell you. It's not part of this workshop, but I'll just throw it in because that reminded me of it. When children steal money, they never steal money because they want money. They never steal money because they want to buy something. They steal money because they know that money is valuable to you, and they want to be valuable to you. One way to do that is to get money from you. Now they've got something that you value. Love-starved children steal. No other children steal. Isn't that amazing? It's the way it works. Yes?
My sister, when she was little, didn't get the she brought along with me. And
Say it again
I
in the
said,
mic.
when my sister was little, she was 8, and I was a year old, and my father wasn't there, and she used to steal money out of my mother's pocketbook, and I guess that was to get the attention that she didn't
It was
get.
to get love.
Love, yeah. She didn't get the love because my mother did love my older sister more, and she showed it. And my sister really felt it and had more or less a nervous breakdown at 8 years old. When she was in the 4th grade, she all of a sudden couldn't read or write, and it affected her very deeply. And she even pretended she had polio. She was in the hospital and pretended she had polio because she wasn't getting the attention she needed.
You know, something I would like you to do, if you really want to resolve communication between you and the people that you live with, keep a tape recorder handy all the time. And the very next time you get into an argument, from the second it starts, turn it on. Record yourself arguing, play it back later, and both of you sit there and listen. It will be hilarious. You'll see how absolutely, utterly ridiculous it is. But you can also write down, point to point, how you went through these steps. And if you do that several times and see what you look like and what you sound like, what you feel like, you'll be much less likely to participate in this. You'll learn the dynamics of it, and you'll learn how to get your carrot another way. You see, was there another page here that I have to cover? Okay, that's the end of this session. We have one last session with Thomas coming up in 10 minutes. Do you want to break for 15 minutes, or is 10? 10 minutes is sufficient? Okay, back in 10 minutes.
Paul, can I just share one little thing which I feel will be helpful for the group? I've been working on a lot of this with my wife in this past couple of years, and one of the things that I've found the best, that helped us tremendously get through this struggle, was when we found ourselves getting into an argument, we realized it was like the saboteur coming out, and we just grabbed hold of each other and hugged. So we didn't let that energy come between us and just held on and went through all the uncomfortable feelings and just held on with it. And it's amazing in the end how it dies away. It teaches you both humility, and it really does work.
That's great. That's
So
a great
I just
idea.
thought I'd like to share it.
Make a commitment. The second an argument starts, throw your arms around each other and hang on.
Drops the pride.
Yeah. Good technique. Thank you. Thing that you can do in communication is seeking a point of clarity. You were given something called a 5-step process yesterday, I think. And this is a process that comes from Virginia Satir. It is not technically a part of inner-light consciousness. We do not teach it in ILC. I have never taught it. I don't know the material. I don't think it works. I don't agree with it. So that's just my statement about that. So, what Reuben taught you, I know he understands, and I heard that he taught it very well. And if that works for you, that's great. What we do work with is what I call seeking a point of clarity. And if you know that that's what you're doing, you're seeking clarity, you're not trying to prove a point, make sure that that's what you're doing when you do this. This also is 5 steps. But this is seeking clarity. It's not the 5 steps of communication from Virginia Satir. Step 1. Step 1 is the toughest step, but it is critical to all the other steps. If you can't get down number 1, stop. Don't go to 2. It's pointless to go to 2 if you don't get 1. 1 is recreate the facts. In recreating the facts, what you're doing is you are addressing sensory input. It's what you saw, what you heard, what you experienced, but not what you believed or felt. It is simply facts. Now, this is supposed to be positive earth. Now, when you recreate the facts, step 2 is get agreement on the facts. And what that means is that I don't stand here and do my 5 steps of all my beliefs dumping on you, and then you come back with 5 steps dumping on me. It means that we seek one thing, just the facts. What happened? What did you say? Now, here's what happens. If I characterize what you said, You said something, and if I say, okay, these are the facts, you just accused me. Now you stuck in a charged word. That's not the fact. Or you say, you attacked me with this statement. That is not the fact. Drop the accusations, drop the charged words, drop the emotional phrases, and recreate specifically the facts. No interpretation, just the facts. And then see if you both agree on the facts. Now, the facts include this. I heard you say these words. Repeat the words exactly. If you can't repeat the words exactly, then ask the person what they said. If they state it differently the next time, don't be surprised. But when they state it differently, take the new statement and say, oh, now I understand this is what you mean. Now you restate what they just restated, but state it exactly. Don't change it again. State the facts, clarify the facts, agree on the facts. That is steps 1 and 2. State the facts, get the agreement. If you're talking about the same thing, you can go on. Otherwise, you've got what's called apples and pears. You're talking about one thing, I'm talking about another thing, and we're both being subjective, not objective. So you start out with objectivity in recreating the facts, sensory input, no interpretation. Do you agree? If we agree to this point, then we can go on to the next point. Number 3 is, when I saw, and that is saw, heard, etc., 5 senses. When I saw this, heard this, felt this, when I saw the facial expression, this is the way that I would describe your facial expression. This was a grimace, this was this, and this is my interpretation. Now step 3 is purely subjective, and you admit that it's purely subjective, and you have to ask the person, did I interpret your facial expression accurately? If the person says no, then for God's sake believe them. They know what their facial expression meant. And if they're not willing to own what their facial expression meant, it means that they do not now mean it. So why argue about what they meant the first time? In an emotionally charged situation, they did have that look on their face. It was a scowl, but now they're not admitting that it was. If they're not admitting it was, they're now telling you it's not what I mean now. So why don't we deal with now? If you put out something you didn't mean in an emotionally charged moment, what the hell use is it rehashing it? I want to accuse you of it. I want to hold you responsible for it. What for? To what purpose? Is there a purpose? I know that there are people who say, always hold people responsible for what they did. Well, your belief of what they did is subjective. You cannot hold them responsible for your experience. So, first of all, you're going to have to recreate the facts. That's essential. Otherwise, you're not talking about the same subject. Recreate the facts. Then, get the agreement from the other person. We both agree. This is what was said, including all the senses. This is what I heard. This is what I saw. This is what I felt, and feeling here is not emotion, sensory input. This is what my tactile sense felt. If there was no tactile sense, don't bother. This is what I smelled. Whatever. Use strictly the senses to recreate the facts. Now, in recreating the facts, you've got things like tone of voice. Tone of voice, when you recreate the facts, would you characterize your tone of voice the same way I characterize it? If no, then how do you characterize it? What did that tone of voice mean? If you're seeking a point of clarity, always let the other person be right. Otherwise, you're not seeking clarity. You're seeking to be right. Don't hold people responsible for what they don't believe that they did, what they don't agree that they did, because it's pointless. Don't waste your breath. Don't waste your time. It's a useless exercise. And it can lead you into saying things that you don't mean, doing things that you don't want to do, destroying things that you don't want to destroy. So don't try to hold somebody responsible for what they don't agree that they did. Recreate the facts, agree on the facts, and then give your interpretation. This is what I think that facial expression meant. This is what I feel that tone of voice meant. This is what I feel your statement meant. And then once more, after number 3, you go for agreement. Do you agree? Is that what you meant? When you use that facial expression, is that what it meant? When you use that tone of voice, is that what it meant? Am I correctly interpreting what you're saying? You're seeking a point of clarity now. You're not arguing your point. You're asking to understand. If you're asking to understand, you can come to agreement. And if you insist on accusing them of your interpretation, then you're laying a trip on them. So get real. If they don't agree that that's what they did, why argue that they did it? What's the point? Is there a point? Anybody disagree with me?
Some counseling techniques would suggest, to push the person a bit so they can see it.
Well, I disagree with those counseling techniques. I don't have a right, nor do I believe you have a right, to push somebody to own something that they are not willing to own. We are not here to make each other over. We don't have that right. Now, if a person wants to know what I feel, then I ask them. If you want to know what I feel, then you're going to have to ask me. So when I recreate the facts, if we get agreement on the facts, fine. Then we can go on to the feelings. But even at this point, when I saw, heard, and so on, was I right? And if you say no, I believe no. Why not? Why should I push to get you to admit to something that you don't believe that you did? Now, you can do it, and here's how you can do it. If you're in an intimate relationship, you can say, well, if you don't agree that you just were a shithead, then I'll withhold sex from you for a week. That's not seeking a point of clarity. That's manipulation and it's punishment. And if the other person knows that's what you're going to do, then they'll admit to anything, if they're horny enough. But it doesn't make it true. It's John.
I'm a little troubled with this.
I'm a little troubled with this because I pay a lot of attention to my intuitions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime I hear somebody say something on a verbal level and my gut doesn't agree with what they're saying. So in that situation, you're saying I should go with what they're saying they experience rather than what my own gut's telling me. And I have a little trouble with that message that you're giving me.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, good.
So now we have a situation. You're asking me if I agree with those facts, and I'm telling you, no, that's not what I said. So we already have number 1 here.
Okay.
What I said to do is recreate the facts first.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me exactly what I said that you heard in this other way.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought that I said throw out your intuition. I'm not saying throw out your intuition, and when you come to this and they don't agree with your intuition, that's fine. You know what your intuition is. Trying to get them to agree to it, if they don't want to admit it, is pointless.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I don't give up my intuition. I still may believe that's what you meant. And I am probably correct. But what I've gotten to it now is when we seek a point of clarity, the person no longer feels that way. So why do I want to take them back to saying something that they didn't mean, which they said in a heated moment, and they masked what they were really feeling? Their words and their meaning were not the same. Maybe if you've got a great, honest person with a lot of integrity, they will admit that they said that and didn't mean it.
Mm.
If you get that far, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And if they will own up to what you intuitively feel, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
If not, there is no point in going further. There's just no point.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Yes, Richard?
Would this be correct? If I believe my husband has a drinking problem, and I'm trying to convince him he has a drinking problem, as long as he doesn't see that he has a drinking problem, he doesn't have a drinking problem, but I have a problem. I have a problem with my husband, my perception of my husband. That's my problem. Has nothing to do with him. Until he can understand that he has a drinking problem, he accepts that problem, then what he does with that, that's his business. But I can't push that onto him, because trying to push it onto him is denying that I'm the one that has the problem.
Yes. What I would do in a situation like that is, out of compassion, I would try to convince them that it's a problem, and when I see that he's not ready to hear that, then I deal with my problem, which means that I get out of the situation. I don't become an enabler for him to continue this. But that is dealing with me, and that's all I can deal with, is me. We don't have an option of manipulating other people. I know that there are people who say, hold people responsible. You cannot hold anyone responsible who is irresponsible. You just can't do it. You can hold yourself responsible for whether you're victimized by it any longer. You can't make responsible people out of people who don't want to be made responsible. Now, if they request it, then you can help. If they want to know what you felt, then they can ask. And if they don't ask, my recommendation is don't tell them. If they don't want to know, they won't hear anyway. Go, Mike.
Yeah. You're saying that when you're seeking clarity, you seek clarity, and when you're asking somebody, you're going to trust them that they are right in what they're saying about their facial expression or about what they meant. And then I get myself, you say that if you're going to go by your gut feelings and still say, well, that's not what I believe, because I've seen that facial expression, and if they said, you know, that's not what my expression meant, I didn't mean, you know, like I'm angry at you or irritated, I want to hurt you, and you still feel inside your gut, well, that's what it is.
Okay. Whatever you feel inside your gut, this is one thing we just have to get down to. We don't have any options here. What you feel in your gut is subjective. Number 3 is subjective, not objective. You can never prove to that person that their facial expression meant what your gut told you. Your gut is your gut, their face is their face. So they have to say, that is not what I meant by my expression. What you have to do is say, what did you mean by your expression? And when they tell you, if that disagrees with your gut instinct, then ask them, is that what you're meaning now? Never mind what they meant a while ago when they were trying to hurt you. Perhaps they were. It's unimportant. In this now moment, are they in another place? Are they still trying to hurt you? Ask them. Are you trying to hurt me now?
And when they say that, well, no, this is, then you just say to yourself, oh, that's what she meant, and I'll just, you know, or that's what they meant, and you just drop it.
Well, what you say is, I'm simply seeking to be clear. This is what I felt, this is how it felt to me when you did that. Do you agree that that's what the situation was? If you get agreement here, you can go on to the 5th step. If you don't get agreement here, then you agree to disagree, and you can forgive. At this point, you can say, well, I misinterpreted your facial expression, and it would appear that I've misinterpreted your facial expression repeatedly, many times, because I've always thought that that facial expression meant this. And I'm sorry if I'm misinterpreting. But I would like you to know, I would like you to let me know, the next time you have that facial expression, I'd like you to tell me what it means so I can get clear in my gut. You see, what I'm seeking is to be clear. And if I want to be clear, I want to be clear not on what my gut tells me. I'm already clear on that. I want to be clear on whether that's what she meant. Seeking clarity is not proving my point. It's wanting to know what the other person felt. And I don't depend on my guts or my guide for that. I depend on the other person. I cannot know what that other person felt or meant until I ask them. When I ask them and they tell me, I can hold them responsible for that. This is what I meant by my facial expression. This is what I meant by my tone of voice. And what will happen if you're really seeking clarity, a person will often say, yes, that may have been my facial expression, and I was irresponsible. I didn't mean it. This is what I feel now. Now you're getting somewhere. You got out of the stuff, and you got into where we are now. That's nice. Drop everything that happened, even 10 minutes ago, is 10 minutes ago. It's not where we are now. So let's get real now so that we can go to step 5. And step 5 is reconciliation. And that's what Thomas calls step 6, I love you. It may not be step 6. Maybe you don't love them, but you do reconcile. So I'll put reconciliation, and if that means I love you, then hug, kiss, and go ahead with what this foreplay was all about. Does that make sense? I'll tell you why I made the statement. I don't want to be put in the position of criticizing Virginia Satir. She knows her material. She does what she does it well. She didn't make me understand it, and I couldn't make it work, because every time I saw a 5-step, I saw people dumping on each other. And I've never seen a 5-step that didn't wind up that way. And that's why I say, if you don't get past the first step of agreeing on the facts, then you're not talking about the same thing, so there's no point in going any further. Agree on the facts. This is exactly what happened. These are the words you said. This is what I believe was your tone of voice. And if you get into saying, I know that tone of voice, I know what that means, listen, that is your subjective interpretation. Be really clear about the difference between facts and interpretation. Facts are objective. Interpretation is subjective. Separate the objective from the subjective and then go to your interpretation, your beliefs, and how it made you feel. You can say that. Now, whether you had a right to feel that way or not is something that you want to deal with in reconciliation. Was I right to feel this way? Is this what you meant? Seek a point of clarity. Don't seek to prove your point. Those are two different things. Proving your point is imposing your will. Trying to hold somebody responsible for what they don't believe they did is absolutely futile, and it only leads into hurt for both of you. You'll hurl accusations back and forth and try to justify it by some kind of step process. All the steps are a dance. So make it a dance. Dance together. And you can reconcile. Always ask, never accuse. Unless you want to fight. Accuse if you want to fight. Ask if you want to be clear. That's the difference. What else would you like to do? Kiss and make up? If so, you can line up. Okay, would you like to try these 5 steps on some situation that you have, current, active?
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
You know, these sound really objective, but I know that when someone has said something I do experience hurt despite all my spiritual training, which tells me that I do. And I'm, do you have any insight to offer on how to deal with the reaction? I hope I'm chosen.
Okay. Yes, what you can do when you feel hurt is say, I feel hurt.
All right.
And if I want to go a step further and blame you for that, what that means is I want to fight. That's all it means. I feel hurt is I feel hurt. And if the other person says, why do you feel hurt? Then you're getting somewhere. If they don't want to know why you feel hurt, don't tell them. You can say, I feel hurt. Then if they care, I believe they will ask, why do you feel hurt? And then you can say, because I believe you said this. Do you agree that's what you said in these words? But if you change that in this way, you attacked me with this. Now you've characterized it. That's not the facts. So you can't characterize it. You say exactly what they said. Do you agree on what you said? Yes. Okay. When I saw your face, to me that looked like this. Is that what it was? No. All right. What was it? What was the facial expression? Well, just my normal facial expression. I look like this. I can't help it. Oh, well, I thought there was a communication from your face. I thought it looked a little bit like this. Mimic it. You know, one of the things that you will learn, and I'm serious about this, do mimic a facial expression, and here's why. In university studies, when they put two people together mimicking facial expressions, they think the same thing. There's actual transference of thought when you mimic a person's facial expression. One of the best techniques for being psychic that's ever been discovered. And it's been tested over and over and over. You will understand a person if you mimic their facial expression. So mimic the expression. Do you agree that what you look like was this? Put the face on. And does that facial expression mean this? No, it doesn't mean that. Well, what does it mean to you? Why did you use that facial expression? Why did you use this tone of voice? I only want to know, not to accuse, not to blame. And be honest with yourself. If your purpose is to accuse or blame, then say so. I want to accuse you, I want to blame you, and I want to fight. Get real. Be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you have no integrity. If you don't have integrity, you are not at one with yourself. That's what integrity means. I'm not split apart into factions. I am one with me. I am honest with me. That's integrity. Honesty with another person is a result of being honest with me. If you're not honest with you, you cannot be honest with others. So, get your integrity intact and say, I'm not seeking a point of clarity. I'm seeking to prove my point. Tell the truth. Then you can hold other people responsible for the truth when you tell the truth. But if you want to bend it just a little bit, you got to give that same option to the partner. That's getting real.
But it is always difficult to talk about expression of the face because
Sure.
I don't see my own expression. But meanwhile, you should have always a mirror with you so that people in front of the person. Then I understand maybe what they say. Always it confuses me.
The mic is working. It just needs to be over here.
Is it working now? No, it's not working. Hello, hello, hello. This one here.
Oh, that one's working.
That's one.
Okay, that's the one that's making noise.
So can you
Okay.
just say the eyes of an other person is always a good mirror for your face expression, or?
The only way that you can know your own facial expression is to know what it feels like. And when another person asks you, is that a scowl, is that a frown, is that distaste, what is that expression? And then you're going to have to remember, and you may not want to remember it the way it was. You probably won't. But when you're getting real with a partner like this, if you're absolutely honest, both of you, then you can really get somewhere as to owning your own facial expressions, calling them what they are, and you'll start to become conscious of what you're communicating. You communicate with your whole body, never just with the voice. In fact, what you say in words is almost never what the rest of your body is saying. So when you start this process of agreeing on the facts, you can be sure that you're going to see the facts differently. You'll rarely get past step one, because people will not agree that these are the facts. What you saw on my face is not what I believe was on my face. So then I have to ask, what was that? Well then, I don't know. Okay? What I saw was what I used to feel hurt. And the reason I felt hurt is because I thought that your facial expression meant this. If the person says no, then say, I'm really glad to know that that's not what you meant. I appreciate that. I mean, why go into more stuff than that? It's just not necessary. Like that. We lost it. It may be unplugged over here somewhere.
One packed up here as well.
If you ask a direct question and they're not being honest with you, that cuts off an awful lot, Paul. It really does.
Say that again?
If you want to know an answer to a question and they're not being honest and you know they're not being honest, that kind of cuts off an awful lot. You can't really have a relationship if somebody's not being honest about some things.
That's right. So what do you do? What's your option?
Well, I guess there's much you can do. You just have to,
Oh, there's a lot you can do. You can make yourself absent.
Oh, you
don't have to
mean
make
going away
yourself
for 3
available.
days, like you were mentioning a couple?
Oh, no, I'd go away for several years. If I know that a person is not being honest with me and they're not willing to own their part of the communication, I'd go away for more than 3 days, I assure you.
I didn't mean that.
If I don't want that in my life, then I leave. And if I know that they're not willing to be honest with me, then I've got the message. I mean, what more do I need to know?
I mean, you can have that with friends, you can have it with relatives, you can have that with a lot of different people. They're not being honest.
Yeah, you'd be
And I
surprised
really
who you
can't
make
stand
yourself
that.
absent from.
I can't stand that, Paul. I really can't,
Well,
because I
If
feel...
you can't stand it, the only option you have is to lie down.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, as they say.
Like
Leave.
I hadn't talked
Get
to
away
my
from it.
I hadn't talked to my sister in 18.5 years. When I did talk to her, and I wanted some direct answers, I knew she was lying, but if it wasn't anything, she just wants to avoid these certain things. She don't want to be honest, and that really bothers me, because I can be honest. I don't understand why other people can't. I realize that everyone's different, but I just don't understand why they don't want to be honest. That's something I don't understand. I guess I just don't know where they're coming from. I don't know where they're coming from, that's all, I guess.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There's a lot about other people that we won't understand. We can try. And if we will make an effort, there is a lot that we can understand. We can ask, why? Why are you insisting on telling me this when the facts seem to be different? Or are the facts different? What do you believe? If you can't get anywhere with a person, listen, you are not obligated to maintain a relationship with your sister. You're not obligated to maintain a relationship with your mother, with your father, with your wife, with your children. If they don't want a whole, honest relationship with you, don't go away and hurt about it. Go away and enjoy your life and let them enjoy theirs. And if they come back, then see whether or not you can make that relationship work. And if not, get absent again.
Hang on.
wants to get a mic back there.
Okay, am I to understand that when I raise my hand repeatedly and don't get called on, that people, you can only speak for yourself, that you don't want to hear what I've got to say or the questions I have to ask? And when I do get a chance to ask a question and it doesn't get answered, what are you saying there?
Okay. Well, first of all, if you're putting up your hand and I'm not calling on you, it's because I'm not seeing you. I have no problem with giving equal time to everybody here, and I try to do that. That's number one. Number two, you ask a question, don't get an answer. If that happens, it's probably because I didn't understand the question. I will answer it to the best of my ability. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. Yes, Richard?
Going back to something that was said earlier about seeking clarity. When I say, I feel hurt, that's quite different than that's a statement. When I say, you have caused me hurt, that's accusation, correct?
Right.
Then that's going to open up a whole can of worms. So it's quite different from I feel hurt, and I'm taking responsibility for that, and then I can say why I feel hurt.
If the person wants to know.
Yeah, if they want, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once I say you caused me hurt, I'm entering a stage where there's going to be a defense and et cetera. I'm going to get into an argument.
Not only that,
because I'm always accusing. Yeah, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. I'm accusing someone of having the power to hurt me.
There's a better way to say it that's more responsible. I have just used the excuse that you've given me to feel hurt. You've just given me an opportunity to feel hurt, and I have accepted it. You can say it in a lot of other ways, and when you do, it makes a much more interesting conversation. And it's also it's closer to the truth. And it's more likely to lead to the other person not defending themselves, but owning what they did. Give people a chance to own what they did without accusation, and most people will take that opportunity. But, you know, we close down communication so regularly in our own lives because we don't want to face what we feel. We don't want to take responsibility for what we feel. We don't want to take responsibility for making our relationship work. If we're there, then we're in a hopeless situation. If we want to know how to make it work, then these things will work. Don't accuse, do ask, try to get the facts, make sure you agree on the facts. Then give your interpretation. If the other person wants to know, see if they agree with the interpretation. If not, then you know where the problem is. And you can say, well, I don't agree that that's not what you did, but where are we now? If you can't agree on what happened, agree on where you are now and go on from there. You know, if you feel that you must make a person responsible for what they said 10 minutes ago, then you've got a control problem. You don't have to hold them responsible for where they were 10 minutes ago. Hold them responsible for where they are now and go on from there. If you're trying to make them responsible for what they did 10 minutes ago, you're trying to brutalize them, you're trying to punish them, you're trying to lay trips on them, you want to go back in the past. You know as well as they do that you and I, all of us, say things in the heat of emotion that we don't mean. So why hold me responsible for what I didn't mean? Something I blurted out, I didn't mean it, I don't even want to be reminded of it. If I really have integrity, I will admit that I did it, and I will tell you I didn't mean it. And when I tell you I didn't mean it, I will expect you to forgive me, and let's go on from here. Let's not talk about it anymore. Yes, I did that, and I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Let's move. Let's go on to a new place. Let's keep moving. in our relationship. Relationships grow that way. Are you asking a question, or are you standing up to be comfortable? Okay. Yes, Susan.
If there's a repetition over and over again of the thing that said, well, I didn't mean it, and you accept that from there, and then you find that you're back in that pattern again and again, are you simply faced with, we're going to eventually deal with this, or I'm going to leave, or are there some ways that we can work with that, a repeated pattern?
Well, you can agree on what you're going to do with a repeated pattern. Get an agreement that this pattern is repeating itself, and you may have to talk to, you may have to address how both of you set it up, if you do. If you find that he has a repeated pattern of this, then see if you can see what the repeated pattern is of yours that leads to this. How do these play together? And if you know that you're not asking for this, and it's not what you want, then you can say, this is not what I want, and when I get this, I'm going to be absent until we break this cycle. And in that situation, that's where I would say, leave for 3 days. And during that 3 days, do not make a phone call to find out if they're all right or not, because they will not believe you're gone. If you're going to be gone 3 days, no communication. They don't know where you are. Don't return until the 3 days is up. When you return, be there if they want you there. And say, I did this to break that cycle. I did this to let you know. We train people in how to treat us. When a person treats us the same way twice, and we put up with it, we just gave them permission to do it a third time. We train people in how to treat us. Always, everyone that treats you, whatever way they're treating you, you have taught them to treat you that way. If you want to unteach that, you're going to have to go through the exercise that unteaches it. You're going to have to say, I'm not available for that kind of treatment, expression, whatever it is. That'll break a cycle. And it may break a marriage, or a relationship, or whatever. And you have to decide what you want, what you don't want, what you will have in your life, what you won't have in your life. Be clear. And don't say, I won't have this in my life if you will. You know, don't give ultimatums that you don't mean. People are likely to accept them. Don't issue threats that you don't mean. In fact, don't issue threats at all. Just go.
But in the meanwhile, it can never break relationships. It can only break illusions, I think.
That's right.
You cannot break relationships. There is still a relationship. Only you break some illusions from yourself about what a relationship can be.
Well, if I step out of a relationship and we are not interacting, then there may be a relationship on some other level. And, you know, perhaps I can tolerate that. Even a history of a relationship is a relationship. But I can darn sure make it history.
Paul, this 3-day break, you couldn't do that with Source, could you?
With the source?
Yeah.
With God?
Yeah.
Where would you go?
Well, precisely. I thought it may sound absurd as I asked it, but I just thought, you know, whether if you wanted to renew your relationship with Source, whether you could...
Well, I've gone 3 days without talking with God when I was mad at him, but somehow he never stopped talking to me. I never could get it to be mutual. It's back there.
When I asked you those questions, I skipped a few steps, didn't I? How could I have done it better?
Okay, well, I'm not clear about what you were asking, so let's go back to the steps and see. I think I hear you, in trying to recreate the facts, I hear you telling me that you were raising your hand repeatedly and you were not called on. Okay. then the next thing that we want to do is agree on those facts. And my response to that is, I don't know. If so, I didn't see it. Now, there are times when I'm in the middle of saying something, a person raises their hand, I note that, and I will come to them when I finish this point. But I don't believe that I often forget that a person did have their hand up. Even if you take it down, I will call on you when I come to a point where I can answer a question. That's my belief.
Okay, so if you don't know and you don't disagree, then that is taken as agreement on the facts.
Well, I am saying I don't know on the facts here. If you believe that to be the facts, I was not aware of that fact. Okay, I don't know that that's disagreement. It's saying I don't know. I mean, I don't know is I don't know.
What I felt was pretty much invalid because,
What you felt was?
I should say, my feelings were invalid because I misinterpreted,
Okay.
right? Okay.
I would assume so. If you're talking about me, or if you were talking about other speakers. Also, you know, one thing that you can always do is if you have up your hand and you're not noticed, stand up. That's the best way to get a mic to you anyway. And if you don't get my attention, get their attention, the mic handlers, and they will let me know that you have your hand up. That's part of their responsibility. But of course, if they sit down here where they can't see you, they're not doing it right.
I was using
That
this.
was an accusation, Les.
I won't take it personal.
I was using this as an example, like, okay, I just started school Monday, and they're teaching plumbing and electrical and all that. We have hands-on experience. And I was out there last break copping a big resentment, and it's like, God's source, whatever, I just, whatever, created an opportunity to put this on in practice. So I'm like, okay, yes, this applies, but this is also pretty general, too, because I want to know how to do it.
Okay, how to get attention when you have a question. You know, there is a good possibility that, that people are uncomfortable with your difficulty with your throat and avoid communication. That's very possible. And it wouldn't be a good idea to take offense at that because you have to live with it. And make people comfortable as best you can and be comfortable. I mean, you don't have a choice. So accept it in yourself and ask people if they're comfortable. That's something that you can always do with, you know, people get uncomfortable with anything that is unique about another person. The way they dress, the way they look, the sound of their voice, this sort of thing. So, you know, you can always show that you care, and if you say to a person, does this bother you, does this make you uncomfortable, and they're willing to say yes, then apologize. And, you know, you may not find it valid to apologize for the damage that you have in your throat. And if you don't want to apologize, then by all means don't. But the most important point is, by asking them, you've showed that you care, and that you're sensitive to the fact that that may make people uncomfortable. And their discomfort is not necessarily a judgment. Usually when people are uncomfortable with something like that, it's because they feel for you. They feel that you're straining, and it's a sympathetic pain. So that may be a factor. It's not a factor with me. As long as I can hear your communication, I have no problem with it. Eleanor, time? Yes, it's time. We have to stop now. Did you get the communication?
She didn't get her question answered.
Who didn't?
She had a question for you.
That was at the bottom of one of the red sheets. At the bottom of one of the red sheets, it says, make sure you want to know. What does that mean?
Okay. In communication, the only way to make a communication complete is to make sure that you want to know what the other person is saying. That's a vital point in any communication.
Sincerity.
Sincerity, maybe, but just make sure you want to know their side. I see a lot of communication in which a person can go on and on and on and not want to know what my view is. And, you know, that's all right. As long as they don't know, they don't want to know, they don't get to find out. Because I don't feel a need to force them to hear it.
I get really upset lately in AA meetings. People come up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Do you really give a damn?" You know, I just, you know, they ask me how I'm doing, and then I'll start to answer, you know, but a synopsis of what's going on, and they'll interrupt or they'll start talking to somebody else or something. You know, I just, okay, well, message is clear.
Oh, not hate message. I don't think so. It's simply a fact of life that very often when people say, "How are you?" That's a pleasantry, and they don't want to know. And if you start answering, you know, in detail, almost anybody will walk away. Now, in AA meetings, there is a different agreement. They are supposed to hear you in the meeting.
In the meeting.
So tell them, save it for the meeting. I'll give it in detail there. But when people say, "How are you doing? How are you getting along?" or whatever, they don't want more than 2 sentences. I mean, that's the limit of their attention span, so just recognize it for what it is. It's not a hate message.
Well, no, I'm saying the message is clear that they really don't want to know. That's what I was saying.
Well,
yeah, that they ask
it's not necessarily they don't want to know, but, you know, I'm not sure that I want to know all the biological facts and so on of how a person is doing. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming to me. I want to be friendly and say, "How are you doing?" And I hope you're doing well, and if you say, "No, I'm doing very poorly," then I may need to spend some time with you. That's my job. So for me, I want to know. For the average person on the street, they don't feel equipped to handle your complaints, and they didn't really want them. So it was a pleasantry. Treat it like it is. Do you have a question?
No, not really a question. I have something to share. I don't know. I dreamed last night about you. And you were asking about my yoga lessons, how the situation was. And then I told there are three groups starting. And then you said, "Oh, great." And then you moved away and pushed me and nap on my shoulder. So that was this night.
Okay, thank you. Okay, please come next weekend if you can. The next workshop is, we're going to be in Washington, D.C. for Heart to Heart Festival. If you would like to come up, let us know, because we have a special deal on hotel rooms and so on. We'll have to save the question till after, because we're past time. Okay, we'll take it after. So come to Heart if you would like to. The following weekend will be Prosperity, isn't it? Yes. Okay, don't miss that one. If you